Detroit just finished the largest Chapter 9 bankruptcy in history. What implications do you think that case will have for other distressed municipalities?
You know, everybody's talking about that. Detroit, obviously very big, and a lot of things happened. A lot of things didn't happen, meaning some law was made, but many things were left undone. So for instance, the art museum, the question of whether assets should be sold in a municipality or whether they should be untouched, and whether creditors should look to those assets or not look to those assets. That's an example of something that got compromised. There was the grand bargain in Detroit. People have talked a lot about it. But I think that the issues there that the bondholders went through, that the pensions went through, that the unions went through, those are going to apply over and over and over again, because I think you're going to see a lot of municipal bankruptcies coming up.
Now, another municipal case that people are following closely is Puerto Rico.
Right.
What do you think Puerto Rico should be doing right now to deal with its debt?
Well, this is actually a fun time to be talking about it, because Puerto Rico passed two laws, bankruptcy laws, Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. And those were supposed to form an ability for the businesses there to file for chapter bankruptcy, but also maybe serve as a hammer over the creditors. And the judge just overturned them both. So now we're back on our own, and the question is what is next? A lot of negotiations are going on. There are multiple entities down there. There's the electric company, by example, PREPA. There's the transportation company, we call it PRATA, not Prada. There's the sewer and water called PRASA. And each of those, and the GDB, the main bank for the island, and all of those need restructuring of one kind or another. Either they need new capital, or they need a complete overhaul of their underlying business, or they need both. So we're in the middle of those discussions, and municipal / commonwealth / state restructurings are complicated, because you're looking at something that is not a typical company. There isn't really the same focus that a board would have. A lot of the focus on some of these companies has been the focus of what the politicians think should happen versus what a corporate board would think. So we're in the middle of those negotiations right now, and I can't say where we are for reasons of confidentiality, but I'm not so sure I could say where we were even if I had the ability to do it, because it's smack in the middle.
Okay, now elsewhere you're working with Iceland's financial issues. Why is that such an interesting situation?
I sound like all I do is work on municipal situations, but I do a lot of other things. So Iceland started back in the downturn, and as a consequence of the downturn, their banks failed. 3 big banks failed, and those banks caused the country to set in capital controls. So you cannot get capital out of the country unless you get an exemption from the government. There are 3 branches of government. There's the Prime Minister, the executive branch. There's the finance branch, which is the Minister of Finance. And then there's the CBI, which is the central bank. There are other branches, but those are the 3 ones that we're dealing with. And the issue there is the bank that I represent creditors on, Copting Bank, is ready to be restructured. But the only way to restructure it is to get an exemption from the capital controls. The country is very worried about eliminating capital controls, because if you give a lot of ISK currency, the local currency, if you give that to creditors, the first thing they're going to want to do with it is sell it. And if everybody gets all this currency and then goes to sell it, then the currency is going to collapse. If it collapses, it's going to cause the nation to go back into a recession or back into a financially bad time. So we're trying to negotiate that, but the government's negotiating with each other. The Prime Minister has a view, the Finance Minister has a view, the central bank has a view. So in this one, the actual restructure of Copting Bank probably isn't that hard. It was a bank, it had a lot of loans out. This has been going on for over 5 years. Those loans have mostly been collected, or you can tell what their value is. They also have a good bank, Arion Bank, it's a good bank. And so the pieces of the negotiation probably aren't that difficult. So the bigger negotiation is going to be with the government on whether to release capital controls and in what way to do it. It's said the Prime Minister would like to sort of take a chunk out of these creditors' hide, because they can't get out without lifting the capital controls. The creditors' view is that's sort of hostage taking. You should not be asking for money just because we're stuck in your country. And if you do that, probably nobody will lend into that country again, and people probably won't invest capital into that country again. So it's a really interesting economics lesson, and an interesting political lesson, and an interesting finance lesson. But we hope to be able to negotiate that shortly. There's a lot of good things happening within the government. They've formed a committee from those three factions of government, and that committee is going to start meeting with us hopefully soon. And then we will, our goal, our optimism is that we will be able to structure something that will be good for Iceland and good for the creditors and good for the bank.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how that develops for sure.
Stay tuned on that one.
We will. Thank you so much for joining us.
Happy to be here. Thanks.